Live from the KMOV Broadcast Center. This is News 4 with breaking news.
Breaking at 4, St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner has resigned.
She made that announcement within just the last 15 minutes on Twitter. Chief investigative reporter Lauren Schrager, we want to get back to her. She's live outside the courthouse with the latest for us. Lauren.
Yeah, guys, we are just giving a breakdown here. We are still going through some of the information and waiting to hear if we're going to hear from the circuit attorney herself on video or in some type of press conference. But we did just within the last 10-15 minutes or so receive a statement via Twitter from the circuit attorney saying she has resigned her post. It's going to be effective June 1st. So we will see a transition happen in this office, but exactly how that transition will happen yet remains to be seen. So I do want to bring in with me now, she is a former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney. Her name is Christy Flint. If you'll join me over here, Christy, when you get a moment. Of course, we've all been on our phones looking for updates and things and seeing what's going to happen next here. But what's just sort of your general reaction to hearing that the circuit attorney has resigned and this date of June 1st? What do you make of that?
Lauren, like you said, this has been a long time coming. And my first reaction as a defense attorney is concern for defendants. But then my second concern is for, the victims of the crimes in the city. 26 days is a very long time for her to be in the office with, very few assistants left to help her prosecute the cases.
You have been following this very closely. We have interviewed you over the years. We have this Quo case that the Attorney General was proceeding on, the contempt case, as well as this recent news about her pursuing a graduate nursing degree. What do you think might have been the thing that really kind of said, okay, she has to leave now?
I think that there has been a combination of factors over the last couple of weeks. There's been a mass exodus of some of her more experienced or most experienced assistant circuit attorneys, and I do believe that the investigation into whether or not she was in nursing school could have played a role in her decision. It is interesting timing.
And we were seeing our very first deposition in the Missouri Attorney General's Quo case happen today. People were now testifying under oath. Do you think if that case had moved forward, the Attorney General might have been successful, or is that something that the community was just really keeping an eye on?
Lauren, I don't have enough history about quo warranto cases or proceedings as I don't think anyone in the state does, right? So I think that would have been a difficult thing to achieve. However, the information that came out during that trial, I think, would have been very damaging for Ms. Gardner.
Can you contextualize this? Again, you're a former prosecutor. You work in this circuit and circuits around the region. Does this feel like a monumental or a historic moment, her resignation?
Absolutely. It's shocking. But also, as we said, a long time coming, and just thinking about the day-to-day operations that go on inside, that building, that, there are literally hundreds of cases that are pending where people need to make appearances, and, I don't know what kind of support they're going to have going forward. If individuals who work in that office now who have supported Kim through all of this, will they stick around in the next 26 days? It's going to be very complicated.
And of course, the big question is who, right? Who will be the circuit attorney then, and will they play a role in a transition of some sort?
I think in normal situations there would be a transition, and but I don't know. I mean, there has been such turmoil and malice between all of the people and parties in this situation that I don't see how it could be a peaceful transition or one where information is shared.
And again, crime victims, crime defendants caught in the middle of that.
Exactly.
Christy, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
So again, the big question here remains, will the governor pick someone today. Again, the governor is a Republican. We know the city here is traditionally very Democratic. We don't know exactly who will be the circuit attorney moving forward. And as Christy and I were just talking about what that transition will look like between the new person and when Kim Gardner actually physically leaves the office. But we are going to stay here. We're going to continue to gather more information. We're reaching out to the governor's office. We're also reaching out to the circuit attorney's office here, and we'll let you know if the circuit attorney does decide to speak about the events that have transpired. But for now, I will send it back to you guys.
Lauren Traeger reporting for us downtown. Thank you so much, Lauren, for your reporting. And we do have questions about what's next. We're going to talk about that briefly. But first, we want to talk about Gardner's resignation letter. We do have parts of that right now. It reads, quote, but we are actually going to pause. We're not going to do that right now. We are going to go to Susan right now. Investigative reporter Susan Alcori joining us to break down what is happening next.
Well, yeah, David, that is the big question right now. Everyone wants to know just what is going to happen next. I did just speak with Governor Mike Parson's office. A spokesperson there tells me that they are going through the process of looking at the next person to appoint. Now, under state law, it says that the governor has to appoint a competent person for the prosecutor's office, and we do know that that person would stay there until the next election. Now, I asked the governor's office, do you have anyone in mind? Do you have someone lined up? No answer from them on that. Another big question here is what happens with this Quo case, the Attorney General's case, trying to remove Gardner from office. Yesterday, we heard the Attorney General make it very clear that he doesn't just want Gardner's resignation. He said that he also wants her to say that she'll never run for office again. I've reached out to the Attorney General's office to ask about what's happening with the Quo case. Do they plan on now dropping that? Still waiting to hear back from them. Another question, the contempt case that Kim Gardner is facing. We don't know what is happening there. A judge has threatened to hold her in contempt, and there is a hearing set on that for later this month. Speaking with sources throughout the day, they tell me that that decision is ultimately going to be up to the judge in the case. He would have the discretion to decide to throw the case away if Gardner is no longer in office. But clearly a lot of things people want to know, answers that we are trying to get, and we'll be out here working to get those for you. For now, live in St. Louis, Susan Alcori, back to you.
All right, Susan, thank you. I want to get to Gardner's resignation letter. It reads in part, I cannot be the final circuit attorney ever to be elected in St. Louis. You must be able to have a voice in your criminal justice system, and we must allow our office to continue to operate. Goes on to say the most powerful weapon I have to fight back against these outsiders stealing your voices and your rights is to step back. I took this job to serve the people of the city of St. Louis, and that is still my North Star. Statement goes on to say, and so it is with a heavy heart but steadfast resolve that I am resigning from my position as your circuit attorney effective June 1st.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Claire Kellett. As News 4 is busy covering breaking news in just the last 15 to 20 minutes, we have confirmed that St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner is stepping down today. As you know, that's more than 2 weeks earlier than the June 1st date that she initially announced that she would be walking away from the embattled office. Chief Investigator for News 4, Lauren Traeger, live this afternoon detailing a number of things. Lauren, let's start with what exactly this means with her stepping down today, and then where do we take things from here? What is next?
Claire, all really good questions that we are seeking answers to right now. Again, there's not a lot of legal precedence for this. This is really a sort of historic moment. It was less than 2 weeks ago that she said she'd be resigning June 1st. And in the meantime, the governor has been working towards an appointment for the office, someone to take over to stabilize the office. In fact, just yesterday, he announced there were 18 applicants and they were narrowing it down to 6. This news today really accelerates a timeline. Again, this is an office that requires 24-hour service, essentially. Crime does not stop in the city of St. Louis, and you need someone that will be in this office helping to run it, helping to seek warrant applications and prosecute criminals as their cases move forward. So we don't exactly know what's going to happen when she does step down today. However, I can tell you that St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney Wesley Bell is inside this courthouse right now. I did see him on the 4th floor, which is where the circuit attorney's office is. A number of his top staffers are also here as well. And we saw some of the circuit attorney's staff hand him what appeared to be like security cards or key cards to have access to the building. We have not seen Kim Gardner herself.
And I know our investigators, Susan Alcori and Lauren Traeger, also have some questions for you. Susan, I think you have a question.
Now, we've been doing a lot of reporting recently just on cases and how they've been handled here by prosecutors. We have times where there have been documented missteps. What does this mean for some of those cases that are still pending, and how does someone step into an office that has had so many issues?
Well, it's going to be a big job, and that's what I want to call on everybody in the city of St. Louis to rally behind this office and to set their politics aside. Regardless of what they think about the governor, he's going to appoint someone to take over this office, and they're going to need everybody's support, meaning the mayor, the police, the judges. Everybody has to rally behind this new circuit attorney.
Shift back to the case involving that serial bond violator, Daniel Riley. There is a lot of confusion in this case. Kim Gardner, as you've heard, keeps saying there were 3 times her office asked to have Riley's bond revoked. News 4 investigator Susan O'Corey continues leading and uncovering new information. Susan, what have you found out now?
Well, Sam, what we're not finding is proof of prosecutors asking to take away Daniel Riley's bond. What we're seeing is just the opposite. We just got our hands on these transcripts. They're from 2 hearings in Riley's armed robbery case. Both show that prosecutors agreed to putting him on bond with a GPS tracker and even asked for that in one of these hearings. On top of that, we're learning there's another defendant in that case who just walked free because of a big slip up at the circuit attorney's office.
You know, I've been doing this 20 years and I've never seen anything like this.
Defense lawyer Raphael Morris says the St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office wrongly told him and his client, the victim in an armed robbery case, was dead.
They haven't clarified to say that actually this victim is alive.
I have not heard from anyone.
Morris represents Elijah Graham. He was charged in the same August 2020 armed robbery that Daniel Riley was out on bond for. Graham's case was set for trial this week.
I asked the prosecutor on the case if they were going to be prepared for trial. I was informed at that point the victim in Elijah's case had passed away and that the case was not going to proceed.
Morris claims that conversation happened last week. He says he and his client showed up in court on Tuesday, where he filed this motion to have the case dismissed. You can clearly see how he marked "victim is deceased." He says prosecutors never caught their mistake.
My son's alive and he's very healthy.
Retired St. Louis Police Sergeant Jim Dandridge says his son is the victim in question.
For them to make simple errors like that, it makes you wonder, how inept is this office? How many other mistakes do we hear about and see and we don't even realize?
We asked the Circuit Attorney's Office what happened. They sent this statement claiming it was a computer system error. News 4 investigates learned while Graham was on bond, he was arrested and charged in a shooting last February. It's that victim who died. Their death wasn't related to the shooting. News 4 found out their death somehow got attached to the robbery case. Court records show Graham continued to be given bond despite the shooting charge, and records showing he violated bond numerous times. Not following bond was also an issue in Riley's case. News 4 investigates found in more than 2 years, he violated bond more than 100 times. The Circuit Attorney's Office says they knew about the violations, but they never filed a motion to remove bond, which would clearly show up in the court record. We asked leaders at the Circuit Attorney's Office why.
I know at least on 3 occasions, I'm certain of that the court was asked to make a decision to revoke his bond.
Is there a record of this? Is there a note?
So I know that there was at least 2 oral motions in front of the court back in 21 and 22.
We keep asking the Circuit Attorney's Office to prove it and give us the records. So far, they haven't. News 4 investigates uncovered that at least 4 judges were involved in giving Riley bond. Judges are the ones who ultimately give and take away bond. We went to the courthouse to ask the judges on Riley's case why, after dozens of violations, he wasn't arrested. We were told no one was doing interviews. Riley's former defense lawyer, Terrence Niehoff, claims the bond violations were for minor things like not charging the GPS tracker and not getting home from work on time.
They were very minor things. You know, nothing that would typically get a judge outraged to lock somebody back up, because people are presumed innocent. And the Supreme Court rule for bonds says that judges are to basically lean towards releasing people unless there's evidence that they're a danger to the community or they're a flight risk.
At the end of the day, prosecutors can and do file motions to have bond removed. They can also make it very clear in the court record that they object to bond. They've done that in the past. This record we found shows exactly that. The judge gave their bond order, but prosecutors made sure there was a note that said state opposed. We're going to keep asking the circuit attorney's office to show us that proof. And you can't overlook that there were a lot of judges who had this case pass through their hands. We're continuing to ask judges what's their responsibility in this, especially when someone violates bond so many times.
This is getting a lot of attention, and it is very rare that we hear from a judge about really anything. But is there a thought, because of the attention this is getting, that they might speak on this, the judges?
Hey, we're still trying for that. You saw me going into the courthouse today. We were knocking on chamber doors. Right now, no one is talking, though.
All right, we know you'll keep at it, Susan. All right, thank you. For St. Louis's prosecutor asked a judge to stop the attorney general from trying to remove her from office due to negligence. Kim Gardner has new troubles. Her office was a no-show today for a murder trial. That judge is now threatening to jail or even fine her. News 4 Chief Investigator Lauren Traeger looks into Gardner's fight to keep her job, and experts now say the tide might be turning.
Some experts who have previously said it was a long shot for Kim Gardner to be removed from office now say the biggest threat may be coming from within.
This could tip the scales.
St. Louis University law professor Anders Walker says the resignation of Assistant Circuit Attorney Natalia Ogurkowicz Friday is a very big deal.
This is someone inside the office who is saying it is in shambles, it's not working, and she has to either commit malpractice or resign.
Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey is seeking to oust Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner from office. But in her latest response, Gardner has claimed her employees are to blame, saying Bailey's accusations are, quote, just bare unfortunate failures and delays, mostly by subordinates in her office. Ogurkowicz had handled high-profile cases, including one much criticized, against a man now accused in a car crash that resulted in a teenager losing her legs. In a letter to Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner Friday, the assistant prosecutor said she could not continue in her job. She wrote, especially because, quote, the political position being taken involves throwing staff attorneys under the bus.
If her own people are saying, no, it actually is warranted, it needs to happen, then the Attorney General doesn't look like he's just engaged in political gamesmanship. He might actually be doing something legitimate.
A hearing in court Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. will be the first time the two sides will face off. Though Gardner has asked for it, Walker says the judge is unlikely to toss the case out, instead stepping closer to an even more public trial.
Let's pop the hood and see what's going on in the engine.
The hearing, like all of them, is open to the public, but will mostly allow both sides to argue procedural points as the Attorney General seeks to gather evidence and testimony through subpoenas and depositions. It's likely we are still in the very beginning of this lengthy legal battle, and you can count on News 4 Investigates to bring you the very latest details. I'm Lauren Traeger, News 4.
The public to know that we weren't set up to succeed, and that's exactly what the Attorney General said, because it's true.
Well, that's sound news since 6 o'clock, and part of the big story tonight. Kim Gardner under fire in the Missouri Attorney General's effort to remove her from power, making it to a St. Louis courtroom within the last hour. That hearing to decide if this quo warranto process should go to trial ended. There's so much to talk about, so much to understand with this as the city prosecutor stands accused of not doing her job. So News 4 Chief Investigator Lauren Traeger has been leading our coverage on all of this, and we're going to walk you through what has been playing out this afternoon in the courtroom. I think a lot of people going into this thought this hearing is going to be rather quick, but hours long, Lauren.
Yeah, about 4 hours here, a lot longer than we did anticipate, because they were going over largely a lot of procedural things as they were kind of trying to work out if this will in fact head to trial. But certainly a very historic day, I think one for the law school books here, because both sides arguing their points about what should come or go, whether this entire case should be tossed out. So there's going to be some precedents here. And we did in the last hour gather some more reaction from some of the parties here. In fact, a current employee, Reddit Hudson, who works for the Circuit Attorney's Office, also spoke with us. So let's take a listen to what he had to say.
She hasn't thrown anybody under the bus. She still stands behind her staff and the entire office in the face of these unfounded attacks. The Attorney General's action not only has the effect of interrupting and disrupting operations in the Circuit Attorney's Office, it has the intent of disrupting and interrupting operations at the office. like me working to destroy the engine in your car and then telling you to drive it.
So let's get back into the courtroom, Lauren, and what exactly is being discussed, the arguments that we heard today from both sides?
Yeah, we hear this term quo warranto, and you think, what is that? It's a Latin term. It basically is saying that the Attorney General's office thinks she needs to be ousted from office. They're trying to prove that there was willful neglect of her duties. The Circuit Attorney's Office, though, is, of course, the Circuit Attorney and her attorneys on her behalf arguing that's not true. And they are also saying that it wasn't necessarily her that had made some of these missteps or mistakes in the office, but that it was her subordinates or her employees. So that's why you hear that former employee speaking out saying we weren't given the support we needed.
The court has opined that her office is a rudderless ship of chaos.
Missouri's top attorney just minutes ago calling out St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner once again.
Also developing tonight, a new judge announced to oversee the case, aiming to push Gardner out of office. Thomas Chapman will be transferred to the case. We're going to get into what that means in just a moment.
But first, Gardner is facing new criticism for what she's doing when she's not in office. We've learned she's taking graduate-level nursing classes. News 4 investigator Susan O'Corey explores that and resignation rumors.
Well, Sam, we just heard from the Missouri Attorney General saying that he's hearing there are rumors that Kim Gardner is going to resign. A spokeswoman from the Circuit Attorney's Office tells us they don't have that information, but it is adding to growing questions about what's happening in the office and if Gardner is spending enough time there.
If the circuit attorney wants to be a nurse, she needs to cease pretending to be a prosecuting attorney.
Nothing like the allegations here.
Courtroom concerns spreading to the classroom at St. Louis University, where the city's top prosecutor, Kim Gardner, is a student, brushing up on nursing. Gardner is a registered nurse. Now she's taking another step. The University Registrar's Office tells News 4 Investigates Gardner is in a postmaster certificate titled Family Nurse Practitioner, and she's been enrolled since fall of 2021. According to SLU's website, the program prepares students to provide primary health care to patients of all ages. The site lists 8 core courses along with multiple specialties, and it includes working with patients. Gardner isn't doing interviews about this. Her office sent News 4 Investigates a statement saying, in part, after serving as a line attorney at the Circuit Attorney's Office and seeing firsthand the underlying issues that drive crime, she became a registered nurse. She continues to stay current with classes at St. Louis University to add to her training and advance her mission at the CAO. The Missouri Attorney General sees this as a reason why Gardner shouldn't keep her job.
Obtaining a nursing degree is not one of her official duties. Prosecuting criminals is.
He's fighting in court to remove her from office and just filed 2 subpoenas. One asks SLU to turn over information about the times, dates, and locations of all classes or clinicals taken by Gardner. The other subpoena is to a St. Louis-based healthcare practice, asking for hours worked by Gardner and surveillance video of her entering or exiting the building. The AG points to state law that says the St. Louis Circuit Attorney must devote their entire time and energy to the discharge of their official duties.
Every minute she remains in office puts lives and property in St. Louis at risk. The criminal justice system in the city of St. Louis has ceased to function, and people are suffering from her unlawful refusal to do her job.
According to the statement from Gardner's office, the circuit attorney has done this at great personal cost to her time with her family and loved ones. Any suggestion that she is not fully committed to her duties as circuit attorney is blatantly false. The AG said he's continuing his call for Gardner to resign. Gardner has said she's not going anywhere. We'll continue to ask her office for her response to that repeated call. Susan O'Corey, News 4 Investigate.